Annotated bibliographies. So have you guys ever done them? Raise your hand if you've done one before. No? All right. Okay, so you will find this. I should show you where to find it first. So the annotated bibliography PDF handout is right up here under writing tools. Yeah, right there at the top. I would encourage you to download it and print it out because it is really annoying flipping back and forth between things while you're already doing things on your screen. Two sides, so just double side print it. And so let's look at it right here. That's the first page. That's the second page. What I would suggest doing is you read the second page first, and it'll tell you the benefits of doing it, why you're doing it, how it can be useful for you, because this isn't about me convincing you to do it. This is about me convincing you to do it right, because you could just try and scrape by, but if you utilize it, I'm fine with when you do your reading responses, when you do your annotated bibliographies, if you write them in such a way where you can cut and paste material into your essay, I'm fine with that. If you are trying to hand me an essay that you wrote in high school or for an earlier class, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with plagiarism, and then even with that, it's kind of like plagiarism because you should be writing something new. Whatever you wrote in your last class is definitely not good enough, especially what you wrote in high school is not good enough here. It could be on the same topic, but you'll notice that you're going to write it way better than you did back then, so just start over. But if you wrote it for this class, I'm not going to be like, oh, they're plagiarizing something they wrote in this class. No, you should be using those assignments to help you. If you wrote your reading responses in a way where you could cut and paste that stuff into your essay, I am cool with that. It means you're probably going to write your reading responses a lot better because you're thinking, I might be able to use this. So you're paying closer attention to it. Likewise with your annotated bibliography entries. If you do them right, I mean, you're introducing the source, you're saying the credibility of the source, then you're evaluating its claims. That's all stuff that you're going to be doing in your body paragraphs. So it might not be as simple as just cutting and pasting the entire entry, but it might be something where you could slightly modify different sections of it or cut and paste a couple sentences here, or, I mean, depending on how well you write it. So kind of a cool thing. You want to work smart, right? You already have a lot of work to do. You might as well do it smart. So yes, this is the second page of it, but it explains in detail the things that you're doing in the annotated bibliography entries, as well as like what it should look like. But here is an exact example, pan out a little bit, of what they should look like. Not quite this long. Remember, the spacing is a little off. Look how thick the margins are here. And you'll notice the whole paragraph is indented right after the entry, like the hanging indent. So just like your works cited entry has a hanging indent on your works cited page, this goes from after that hanging indent, everything is indented. So that gives you more length. It looks like it's more. That's the way it should look. And you'll notice it's color coded here. So you don't color code it. This is for your own understanding of what you're doing in it. And so you can actually write these pretty easily because there's so many things you're looking at as you're doing the crab test and you're trying to figure out, is this source useful to me? How is it useful to me? That's something that you can write out in a way where you're already writing your essay, or you're writing about the source and even maybe throwing quotes in there to the point where you don't have to go and reread the source again. So think about when you're researching for an essay, you're not going to use every single source you find, but you still need to read a good amount of the source in order to know if you're going to be able to use it. What happens when you get through 20 sources just to find 4 good ones that you can use? Well, by the time you go back to the ones that you found earlier on, are you going to remember exactly what you needed in that unless you annotated it and then made an entry for it? Probably not. So if you do this for it, it will also make it so you don't have to go back and redo the thing that you already did. you won't be wasting time. Yeah, it doesn't have to be color coded. This is just to indicate the different sections. Like this is a summary. They don't all have to be this long. It really depends on what you're using it for and how succinctly you can state everything. But roughly 150 words or half a page, might look like half a page. It doesn't say on the document, but you need to have 4. It does say this in the assignment. Like when you click on the assignment to submit it, it'll say in the top, make sure you have 4 sources. It doesn't say it on the handout because I use that for different classes. So in my 1A class, I might only ask them to give me 3 sources. So make sure it's for sources that are going to be your support. Those are what we are counting as your sources. Don't count for sources for your essay, the ones that you're arguing against, because those aren't support for you. Those are what's feeding your argument, but they're not the thing that you're using to support your argument.
For the annotated bibliography, for the summary of it, we're restating like what information we got from that source.
Yeah, what is pertinent for, so you might have like one sentence that summarizes just generally what that article is about, but then the majority of what you're saying is what is in there that is useful for what you're talking about. And if you just write it as, so this is what I'm talking about, trying to make it useful for you later on. If you write, in this article, I found that, so anytime you add that kind of stuff, that's fluff, right? You're just trying to make a word count at that point. You don't need to do that. Just already start trying to put the information down as you would in an essay. The summary part of what the article is about might have to do with giving context to your reader. And then always, what's the credibility of the source, as short as you can? Like, why should I believe this? Why should your reader trust this source and the information they're giving? And then how you're using it. What does it do to prove the claim that you have at the top, which is probably going to be something you have to write in your essay that you can't really put at the beginning of the annotated bibliography entry because it might not make sense there. But if you do it right, you might just be able to put your topic, sentence, claim, and then plug in the rest of the annotated bibliography entry, and then either modify it slightly or, depending on how you write it, make sure you write it in a way where you're already trying to be able to utilize it later on. You don't have to do that, but that's the way that I would do it because I want to do as little work as possible. I just want to make sure I do it right, though. The other thing, that's the other thing I wanted to make sure you knew. You don't have to go over the same thing. Like if you change your mind on the topic of your essay after you've turned in your annotated bibliography, that's fine. I'm not going to dock you points. I'm not going to make you commit to doing that topic or using those sources. You can find other sources, and you don't have to make another annotated bibliography to use those other sources. I'm not going to force you to do that. You're not going to get docked for that. I have had students who have gone back and redone an annotated bibliography for each of the new sources that they chose because they found it useful. You don't have to do that, but it's funny. Like they actually did that. They're like, yeah, I just needed to do it because that was really helpful for me. You are not obligated to do that, but they found that much value in doing the annotated bibliography. So if you decide that like, oh, that's too stressful, I just want to get the assignment done because it's worth significant points, then I can think about my essay. That's fine. It's a waste of time and effort to write something and then go back on it. I know it seems like stressful, like, man, I normally just type up this essay on my way to school and then it's done. Like, why is he making me do all this stuff? Because if you look at it, it is not good for you to write one draft essays. You're not going to write a good essay that way. And if you are still trying to write essays like you did in high school, they're not going to be the quality that we're looking for here. A lot of people have this misconception about homework in college where they think that they can do the same thing they did in high school or have been trying to get away with for their first 2 semesters of college maybe. And the problem is most classes, if they're doing it right, then you're probably going to need to do at least 3 or 4 hours minimum of homework per class or per week for that one course. If you're doing it right, you're investing that much time in it. And a lot of people want to skimp on that, but this is the thing. I can't let you do that. And I also don't want to read really bad essays, and I want you to get better at it. So part of getting better at it is making better practices in writing. So revision, that is king. That is something that is incredibly important. No one writes perfect essays their first attempt. That's not really a thing.